So we don't have universal health care because of anti-black racism?
So which led him to his second hypothesis, which was in his book, Race Traits in 1896, which was that if white people who control the politics and most of the economy of the United States simply deny health care to black people, the black race, again his phrase, would die out in 2 or 3 generations. And that would, quote, solve the race problem in America. Frederick Hoffman took this theory, pitched it to Congress, gave lectures all across the United States to state legislatures, met with governors, to physicians groups. He was beloved by those establishments. By the way, he was the co-founder of the American Lung Association. I mean, the guy was no slouch. He was powerful. He was famous, and people took him seriously. Woodrow Wilson, and this is why in 1912, when Teddy Roosevelt proposed a single-payer health care system to cover everybody as part of his Square Deal plan when he was running for president for re-election, this was why that got shot down, because white people, including the medical establishment, white people by and large said, particularly the white racists in the South, said, wait a minute, if you cover everybody with health insurance, you're going to be covering black people too, and we can't have that. So that ended that discussion in 1912. It's also why they came after Franklin Roosevelt in 1936 when he proposed a single-payer system. It's why they came after Harry Truman in 1947 when he proposed a single-payer health care system. But black people, we can't do that. Black people will get that health care. And this is why they came after John Kennedy in 1961 when he proposed a single-payer health care system. And it's why when Lyndon Johnson and Robert Ball were writing the Medicare law in 1965, the Southern racist conservative senators came to them and said, you need to build into this thing a bar high enough that poor black people in the South, and 60% of black people live in the South right now. It was even a higher proportion back then in the 1960s. So the poor black people in the South won't be able to jump over that bar and show up in our all-white hospitals. So they took Medicare Part B, which is the part that pays for hospitalization, and said, we're only going to pay for 80% of the hospitalization. There'll be a 20% gap, which is the gap that you fill in with your Medigap policy now. That gap was to prevent black people from presenting themselves in hospitals unless it was just an absolute screaming life-ending emergency. So from the beginning through the 1960s, the reason why the United States never acknowledged health care as a right rather than a privilege was because of Hoffman's theories and white racism. I mean, they were just like intertwined. And American racism. I don't know how else to say it. And that prevailed right up until the 1980s, that kind of thinking and that kind of opposition to any kind of health care program.